Present this evening, Kelly McCarthy, myself, Stephen Sally, Carol Marsh, and Richard Morangel. And first on the agenda, we have the replacement of signs at 108 Route 6A, that's CVS Pharmacy. And Gary McCoy,
Good evening.
good evening, is present. So if you'd like to give us a brief overview of what is happening there. It talks about, in the materials we have, as far as I could tell, the new signage, the only difference is the heart.
Yes, that's correct. So CVS has changed their logo over the past few years, and they've added that heart emblem to their logo. But in doing so, the letters also changed a little bit. So when you take a sign down, the sizes are pretty much the same, even though it has that other element to it. So that store has three small sets of letters on the building. They painted it and removed two and didn't put them back up, because knowing that they were going to be changing this to the new logo, so they only left one set of letters up on the building today. But what we're looking to do is replace everything the way it was. Three sets of non-lit plastic letters. They're red. I have a sample of the acrylic here.
Oh, thank you. Samples are good.
And it's pretty much like for like. And just having the new logo present on the building.
Yeah, my questions too about the work. One has to do with there's an image here someplace of a directional sign that is a receiving entrance sign.
Yeah, they have a receiving door sign.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way our sign bylaw reads is, we have the three signs, which are the obvious ones, and then logos such as the one that's shown on the receiving sign are considered an additional sign. So it would be necessary to just remove the CVS symbol from the receiving sign.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm
Yeah.
looking at photos as you're
Yeah.
talking to me. Yeah, that's not a problem. We can take that.
Yeah.
In the bottom corner there where it says CVS, we can remove that.
Yeah, and then the other question, of course, is about the lighting, which we're just talking about. The building has always had, the down lighting, well shielded. I was curious about the lamping. You're going to put new bulbs in there, and I guess the question is, are those going to be put out more lumens than the ones that are there now, or how is that going to work?
No, the intent would be to just replace in kind if needed.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm sure you've experienced where you can change bulbs and there'll be different temperatures. Well, some will be more yellowy and some will be more white.
Right.
And it looks kind of spotty on the building. So the intent would be
Make it
to replace the
consistent.
bulbs in kind and make sure everything has an even amount of light. There's no intention at all to alter the lighting, increase the lighting, or make it brighter at all.
Right, right. Yeah, the trend is of course now towards away from the blue end in the Kelvin.
Yeah.
And towards the
Yeah, something softer.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
That has well, it's easier on the eyes and better in various ways. So I think those were my questions. If anybody would like to have a comment or ask a question about that.
Steve, I have a question for you. I don't know, not up to the definition of the directional. I always knew that the directional signs were viewed a little, the receiving signs were viewed a little differently. And I'm trying to remember what the wording was on that, because I know it's an addition, seems like an additional sign because it's red and it says CVS on it, but I'm wondering if that's part of where it says receiving entrance, whether that has some bearing or importance to the sign itself, to let someone know that that is for CVS. It's an informational aspect, and I forget what the wording was on that, because sometimes you have the name to tell somebody this is receiving, but it's for a particular business.
In that location has always been the receiving location, correct? I mean, that's,
It's nothing different, but I have no problem removing the logo, that's fine. But it is important to let them know when truckers come and look at
and
the
it
delivery
is
things, they
the
don't come in the
same
front door, you
red
know.
color. We could pull that out. I think that's part of what we'll be talking about with Mr. Reserve later. But
Sometimes
it's-
like the,
I think it's under the number of signs here in 16435, but it is clear, and we've discussed this in the past, because in recent years, there's been a proliferation of,
trying to get third,
yeah, everything's got some kind of logo on it, right?
Yeah.
So,
And like a Staples, receiving for the Staples complex, where you have one unit attached to each other unit, that can be, I guess, sometimes confusing. I don't know whether it's the color of the sign, like if that was a white sign with red lettering,
Yeah.
or a white sign with black lettering, where you were trying to, like, it would say receiving, but you'd also want to know that
Yeah.
this is a little different because it's a separate building. And I don't know if it said anything to that effect, but I know what you're getting at, is because people would use that as like a third or fourth or fifth sign. They would put these signs all
Right.
over and try to.
and Staples and those stores, of course, you're going around back to the
Yeah.
non-public
Yeah.
side of it.
Yeah.
But that's a point that might require clarification. You know,
Something down the road or
in
something.
the sign
Yeah.
bylaw, you know,
Okay.
so that, I mean, it could even be a safety thing.
Well, I know, I think we went through, a long time ago, went through this discussion with Papagino's, their awnings.
Right.
They wrap around the whole building, and that was a question, is this a sign, because corporate colors or whatnot, but it doesn't have anything to.
You know, it's very specific. You call out the awnings and label them no change, or leave as is, or some language like that, so.
I just have one comment. This has nothing to do with the official, but you have such a prominent place in town, and we have the beautiful planters along Main Street. And it's kind of, the front of your building it looks great, but it's dark. You could throw some plants in front. I think it would really,
They did have the little planter boxes, but, yeah, under the windows,
Oh, under
right?
the window.
I don't know if are they still there?
Yeah, they are. I can tell you that when the program with the signage is part of what they call a refresh program, which means they bring the store up to as new as possible. Obviously, they want the store to look nice. It is a streetscape. I'm certain that they utilize those planters. I don't have any jurisdiction on the flowers and whatnot, and the landscaping, but I can pass that on and say that, you know, you guys would like to see make sure that those flower boxes are utilized. I'm sure they do.
yeah, I don't remember, I usually notice these things. I don't remember that, but, you know, if you could, it would just dress up our town.
I would say that they want the store to look better than you want it to look.
Okay.
And I can say that the manager.
I'm not sure about that, but
And,
yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, sorry, no judging, but, and I'm sure the manager, you know, I don't know if they're local or whatever, but they're usually fairly local, so they
Okay,
get, they
that's
get
good to know.
the taste of the town and whatnot.
Well, it
so,
looks nice.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments at this time?
No.
Could I have a motion then to approve as submitted?
I will make a motion to approve the signs submitted by CVS Pharmacy on 110 Mass, 68 Orleans, with the exception of the receiving entrance sign not having the logo.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0-0.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a little ironic, I actually did this design for this front when I worked at AD with Andrew.
Oh, you did?
I was gonna ask him about that.
We're
gonna have to need signs
It's
on
been a
this.
long
I think I
time
need to
ago.
sign something.
Thank
We need
you.
them to sign.
Yeah, well, you know that, you signed
I
here.
remember
and,
this was the old theater.
And then,
And do you remember? it
the
was
secretary of the
Deco
building department
theater
has it.
Before it was the regular looking theater underneath.
Oh, that I don't remember.
And then, next step, this will get filed, then I can just file for the sign permit itself?
Correct, yes.
Is it sort of
They should have this
vintage?
tomorrow morning in the building department.
Oh, okay, great.
Have a nice evening.
All right, you too, thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
No,
Bye-bye.
it was just very unique. It was a Deco theater. And then I guess that was years and years ago. And
Probably
then-
never
remember that.
remembers that.
I remember that. Boy,
Right.
There's so many people in this town that missed that.
The pharmacy?
No,
The theater.
Oh, the theater.
I think we all
went
went
to that theater,
still in
yeah.
theater.
Because there was a soda fountain to the
We just need
right.
$3 million.
Yeah, it had that
That's
kind of real 50s kind of Deco look to it. And then it got updated into something newer and then.
The 80s were just a bad decade.
Well, they moved,
They were not a pretty
they
design
moved
period.
that theater to Harwich, right? It was, I mean, there was Interstate Theaters, wasn't it?
Oh,
That was running that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same owner or different
I
theater.
mean,
yeah.
in the building that's now the charter school in
Yeah.
Harwich.
And it was nice to see what they did with that and with that theater.
Yeah,
I think
it
a
really
lot, a
was.
lot of people.
So they bought that with fundraising money.
Yeah,
They had a really good landlord who gave them a pretty,
great.
really good conditions for a period of time. And they have since endowed the long-term operations through a trust. So they're in, like, that's the model if you want a long-term theater. in
Well, you
town.
know, theaters are tough nut these days. I think,
And the Orpheum in Chatham now has all kinds of educational programs.
They
that are
do.
really, really pretty attractive and
They are.
and geared toward, you know, the population down here in the wintertime.
and some food. and
Right.
some food
Yeah,
there.
no, they've done a great job.
Anyway, we're way off subject.
Yeah.
Tough being a theater these days.
I wish
Yes,
something
everyone's
like
got
that
one
was
in their
included
house.
definitively in the town overlay, because I really think that would bring people here.
You need a market for it, and as Rich points
Yeah,
out,
that's- I
the
mean-
prospects.
Orpheum is almost always full, I mean, reasonably full. It's not like the Cape Playhouse or Cape.
COVID did
Cinema.
a number on all the theaters. I think, I don't know how they're.
I think the theater in Chatham continues to operate in,
Swayed.
because of contributions that are getting ongoing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
It's so, it's
It doesn't- I
not
don't think it's
sustained with.
commercial.
It's
Oh.
like Cape Cinema, you know, they're gems, but.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Orleans could have one, but it would take a substantial effort and we need a
Yeah,
champion
nice
to push
philanthropist
it.
to keep
Yeah.
keep it
Pass it
going.
down.
Well, let's just ask everyone here, when's the last time you went to a movie?
Oh,
I went to the
I was in
Cape
the Orpheum
Cinema
last week.
2 weeks
Okay,
ago.
okay,
Well, there you
I
go.
did. I like going
I
there.
can't say, it's been a couple of years.
Theater.
Or the library.
It's odd because they never ask for money. Cape Cinema, I don't remember them ever asking for money.
Well, they must have, because they replaced all their chairs, and so that had to have been a donor initiative.
I think they're struggling too.
I'm sure they are. Well, they almost closed, right? Or they did close.
As far as the minutes from the meeting of March 26 are concerned, we do not have them, so we'll postpone that to our next meeting. So we have Mr. Meservey, the town planner, with us this evening to talk about the subject of lighting and how we should proceed. I think the basic question is goes back to, can we ask that everything on the building be brought up to comply was 122. And then beyond that, to talk about how we can, streamline the ARC process. That would be in terms of some kind of administrative review, so that we wouldn't be talking about filling in swimming pools and stuff like that. And then beyond that, what happens, or how can changes be made to bring the bylaws that concern us, lighting, sign, and architectural review, up to date with, all of those are from quite a few years past at this point. So,
Just take one of those and pass them by.
Thank you.
May I begin, Steve?
sure.
Thank you. Yeah, so
This is yours.
let's do first things first. I'm here to talk about lighting and the outdoor lighting bylaw and the application from the ARC's perspective. So the outdoor lighting bylaw is a general bylaw. It was passed, yeah, that's just a copy of it, and I highlighted the sections that I find most relevant. It was adopted in 2004, and it had a compliance period of 5 years, and that was strictly because the planning board felt that people who had invested in outdoor lighting recently, or who had lights that are in good condition, should at least be able to amortize it for that period and plan for the expense of new lights. So that time has come and gone. Since 2009, all lighting in the town is required to comply with the outdoor lighting bylaw. The bylaw itself contains an enforcement clause that names the building commissioner as the enforcement officer. So he is the zoning enforcement officer, he is also the enforcement officer under the lighting bylaw. And as a general bylaw, there is no grandfathering. We all talk about vested rights from zoning. If you got something non-conforming, you can keep it forever. Under a general bylaw, that does not exist. So the bylaw further has an appeals process. It allows for appeals of the building commissioner's decisions. And under the bylaw, the select board is named as the lighting review committee, or they may designate the architectural review board as the lighting review committee. I have here the minutes of the select board meeting from 2011 in March, where they voted to designate the ARC as the lighting review committee.
So that's already been done.
That was done in 2011, it's all done, yes. So the lighting review committee under the bylaw, as you can see, I think it's on the last page, let's just go
Correct,
to
the
it.
last page, you'll find it.
The lighting review committee's authority, they are empowered to hear and decide decisions of the building commissioner with regard to outdoor lighting. If someone doesn't like a positive or a negative decision, they may appeal it, and you are the appeal body. Congratulations. But the review committee is not authorized to be the enforcement agent of the bylaw. That still resides with the building commissioner. So I think we want to, when an applicant comes in for a small addition on their property, or to change out windows, or something that is not related to lighting, and they have existing lighting, you can't help but look at it and see if it complies. But I think your appropriate response is to advise the building commissioner to look into the compliance level and enforce that as necessary. So that is his job. And I don't want you to get in a position where you're trying to force compliance on something where some push came to shove, the authority actually resides elsewhere. Now, when you have a new application, lighting is part of your the 14 design criteria that you go through. It is absolutely within your jurisdiction to look at all aspects of the site when you have a brand new development, such as we are likely to have at some point in the future. And so that's how that kind of works. But I think just to be, I think that's it on the lighting. Do you have any questions of that? Does that sound?
Who would be the lighting review committee? Is that a separate committee?
You are the architectural review committee has been designated as the lighting review committee. So you probably only meet on an as-needed basis.
But we're also the guys that you would go to if you have an issue?
If someone wants to appeal the building commissioner's decision, That's the only reason, that's the only time the lighting review committee meets.
So who initially would review light? We would, like, I understand, like, if somebody comes in with a new application
Right.
for a signboard or something, we look at the lighting and
Right.
such. So the building commissioner, building department would just be general watchdog of lighting.
Yes.
And then if they make recommendations for someone, hey, you gotta upgrade your lighting, and you say, no, I don't wanna do it, then they would come to this committee
Right.
for the review. So there is no actual lighting review committee. It's just, the review would be the building department.
If the building commissioner makes a decision that the applicant doesn't like, his first appeal is to the architecture review committee, meeting as the lighting review committee. You just probably just post it on your agenda as the LRC, and you probably fit it into the same, gathering. You just meet as the lighting review committee.
If we've reviewed something though, let's say somebody comes in with a new signboard and we're reviewing the lighting and they don't agree with it and want to appeal it, then you're saying we are the committee to.
The review of the ARC, if someone wants to appeal a decision of the architectural review committee,
Yeah,
that is a different matter. Let me just,
all right, I was
Sure.
wondering if we're gonna be
Crystal
the
clear on
same
that.
people.
any decision of the architectural review committee under this section may be appealed directly to the Board of Appeals, that is the zoning board of appeals. So you are subject to appeal to the ZBA.
Okay. Zoning board.
Yep.
Not this way.
And I'm glad to lay this out so there's a kind of a.
So I think that
flow.
what it comes down to is the wording of the approvals, and this would apply to a project like the Seaside Cannabis Building, where I think we all agree that the lighting is not in compliance with 122.
I agree with you there.
So the wording would be approval as presented in the case of the addition, with advice to the building commissioner that the lighting on the structure
Right,
does not comply.
yes.
And then he, Mr. Walters, is notified,
His
and
job is to
that's
follow
where
up.
our responsibility would end.
Yeah,
So they're not linked at all in any way, like that addition, that was an addition they were having on there.
Right.
So we would we, everybody, I guess, is not in violation, but everybody's subject to review by the building department now, is what you're
yes.
saying.
And I-
There's nothing that triggers them, like a certain party to be reviewed, but like when we look at an addition, I think you guys were discussing some of their other lighting, and I guess that was kind of a bristly point. It's like, well, now that they're before us for like a sign or for an addition, then we have, it doesn't seem like we should have jurisdiction or purview over all the other lighting on their property. when
I've
they
been,
come
I've been
in.
advised by previous town council, Michael Ford, that when an applicant comes in for, we deal with this on site plan review all the time. An applicant comes in for a small change to the west side of their property, but they have a nonconformity on the east side. Well, you should not go after the whole site
That's
when there is a small proposal coming at you. Now, if there was a change to something nonconforming,
Yeah.
that's a different matter.
So we look at the matter, strictly the matter before us. If it's an addition, we look at that addition and
Yes.
the lighting associated with that addition or that
It's
canopy.
it's just
or lawn.
a change essentially in language, because advising the building commissioner that the building has lighting which violates 122 is tantamount to requiring them to change it.
Right, but you're not making it
Yeah,
your
we
order.
don't,
Yes.
we don't take the heat.
Yeah, but we're not also being the narc saying, hey, by the way, the rest of your lighting doesn't meet.
I think we are.
Like,
Well,
where that's not,
We have been doing that.
that's what I'm saying,
I
that
think that's
doesn't
perfectly appropriate
seem,
to identify
Yeah.
things that may not be.
Right.
that doesn't
Right, but-
seem like that should be kind of under our purview, because it's not initially, right?
You're not
It's-
required to do so, but if you want to add that send that comment.
So you're saying like we could say, oh, by the way, the rest of your lighting is.
Well, we did that, I mean, didn't we do that last week? And we
Yeah,
said
that's what I'm
yeah,
wondering,
so
whether
we could-
you're
we could say-
overstepping.
Well, I guess we could say that in whatever they do with that, but then we would bring it forward to the building commissioner to say,
Yeah.
hey, we've noticed this.
With
then
notice
it's up
that the
to
rest of it
them to
doesn't
follow.
apply. As George knows, I have a slightly different interpretation of item A, lighting review committee is hereby created. And and in 2011, we became the lighting review committee. And my feeling is to look at what was the intent in 2004. The intent was for somebody, namely us, if not, somebody was going to start in 2009 saying, well, we're sorry, but you've had 5 years and it doesn't comply. That was my position. I do think and agree with George that I would be fine with having a policy that keeps us, focused on the project at hand, but at the same time, it seems difficult to totally discount the role as the lighting review committee. And that's a case where I feel that if there was some kind of clarification of the language, I would be more comfortable.
It's interesting because it's like, when anybody comes before us, it's like, oh, by the way, I understand that as an architect, there's a great need to look at lighting, and interior and exterior. So that's a very important aspect. I think that's why that's always been an issue, is nobody really looked at any of that. They did whatever lighting they want.
Right.
And I think even way back when, in the beginning, we asked for shielded lighting, make sure it faced back from the street and had some certain things there. And took that opportunity to say to a client, oh, by the way, just don't do a floodlight that blasts up out into the street. And that was, at that point, we were almost kind of like, this isn't really our role, but let's take advantage of the point where, you're coming in for a ladder board sign, let's take advantage of that opportunity
Right.
to say something about it. So that's a good thing, but at the same time, you don't want to be the guy like, I know you're putting an awning over your front door, but by the way, 3/4 of the rest of your property, we're gonna narc on you and tell you that you either got to upgrade your lighting or even make a recommendation. That's the question, should we even be making the recommendation that the building department take a look at their lighting?
But I mean, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we?
And it's almost kind of like the nosy neighbor says, oh, by the way, I don't like your, I know you're putting up a shed in your backyard, but I don't like your drapes, and I'm gonna tell the building department about your drapes or your garage door, or, you know what I mean? It's like an opportunity
I
to
think that's a
kinda-
basic flaw in many areas. It's in the building code, in the zoning bylaws and so on, because of that, what you just mentioned of not wanting to be the nosy neighbor. What does it take before somebody says something? It becomes the question. As a private citizen, if you're driving around town, you see lighting that because you've become aware of it,
Oh, yeah,
and you can, as a private citizen.
Even on my own street, when I drive home at night, my neighbor's about 3 foot higher. If he leaves his basement lights on, they come, I'm at the lower point, they come across and come through the house. Or if the neighbor's backyard floodlight is on, it comes right into the bedroom. So it's like that same situation where you're like, hey, could you put a lower wattage bulb in, or could you remember to turn your basement lights off?
Right.
It is
Well,
an annoyance.
That's the first step in residential
Yeah,
areas.
yeah.
And in our neighborhood, the same thing. And we have had, talked to neighbors. And
Yeah.
in some cases, they have been considerate. And in other cases,
So, and we've had
So
that
much.
too, where you've had somebody put up a light and go, whoa, 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 what are you lighting, what are you doing? You're lighting up the whole like a football field. So it is a good thing to have purview or to say something about it, but at the same time, I'm just thinking if you're overzealous as a board, which a lot of boards can be sometimes, is that you start to ask things of people that seem above and beyond. Like if I were to spend, let's say, $3,000 and put in all exterior lighting, and then the next year somebody came around and said, hey, oh, by the way, we don't like any of your lighting, we want you to change it all. It's like, well, you know, why, how do you get?
Of course, new lighting requires a permit. You go to the building permit, it'll have to be compliant before that permit's issued.
So, I don't want to be that guy, but at
But-
the same
Rich,
time, I want to be that guy.
I think the reason I'm here is I don't want you as volunteers to put yourselves in a position where you're exceeding your authority and there's some liability on you for acting outside your enforcement authority. You have enforcement authority within the architectural review bylaw, but I just wanted to point out the lighting difference. And what I'd like to offer, and I want to talk about this more when we get into the second matter that I'm here for, is maybe this is a good time. We have brand-new town council. I would like to make them familiar with the processes of regulations in the town. And I'd like to, have them corroborate your town planner's opinion on how to interpret the outdoor lighting bylaw. And provide some guidance both on lighting and on processes that we might want to talk about to make a little more streamlined. Are we ready to get into that discussion? And we can always circle back.
Well, I think there was some agreement on putting language on the approval that calls attention to the non-compliant lighting. Now, I received, back in January, I corresponded with Davis Walters about this subject and asked him very directly what our role is going to be. And his reply, I queried him on the 18th, his reply on the 20th was definitely the ARC should enforce 122. Now, that could mean that maybe you could talk with Davis.
I think there's nuance to that. With regard to new proposals.
And come up
Yeah.
with something that we could put in the approval, because, of course, we don't want to incur liability or get people angry at us
Right.
for enforcing, but as we well know, there's a lot of people that are displeased in the other direction. Why aren't we doing our job? Why is this happening? Why are all these crazy lights on the Chase Bank? Stuff like that.
Yeah, and then you say, oh, not my job. And it's like, well, it should be your job.
Whose job is it, right? So hopefully, maybe we could, I don't think we have to figure this out totally this evening.
No, point taken, we need to be, as your staff to a volunteer board serving the town, we need to be consistent in our interpretation of bylaws so that everyone is treated equally and the same, regardless, and that the goals that are expressed and the purposes of the bylaw are what becomes reality over time. That's the plan.
How about Kelly and Carol? Do you have any comments about it at this time?
Yeah, I just want to be
What's your
clear, so you're saying that when someone comes before us, unless if for a sign approval and there is upward lighting on that sign, that would be the only time that you would want us to make a recommendation about lighting? Otherwise, we could see 20 violations of existing bylaw, but we would just not say anything?
So let me rephrase and see if we might be in agreement.
Okay,
If someone comes in with a new sign that has lighting, it's a new sign, it's newly proposed, and lighting is part of your design criteria that you review new projects with, you can apply that at whether it complies or not, whether you are going to approve it. You have authority to approve or not approve that application. You just don't want to reach beyond to, and the lighting out back in your back of your building also doesn't comply. So you want to confine yourself to the proposal that's there. And the other aspects of the general bylaw are the enforcement authority of the building commissioner.
That's interesting.
And is
So
that-
you don't say, and that light on the second floor and that one over on
Yeah.
that deck, and
Yeah.
we don't like those, but,
It's hard not to see them,
yeah,
Jennifer.
yeah.
Jennifer?
I just wanted to ask a question, because the way I'm hearing this, is the enforcement of the lighting bylaw is outside of an application even. So the building commissioner is enforcing what's there, whether anybody has come to architectural review or not.
Yes.
And so it's just, I think,
Hopefully.
there's no reason why you can't communicate with the building commissioner and say that you know, there's non-compliant lighting
Right.
on this building and let him deal with it.
Will that happen?
That's a different question.
Well, so they would
You know,
It's a separate question from,
I've been through that with code problems. People have asked me to come and look at something as an architect, and I said, that is totally, whatever you've got there going on is totally illegal. And one job, it scared me so much, I immediately went to the building department and said, you have to go look at this. Someone's gonna die because of the way they did this thing. And he said to me, that wasn't Davis, it was a long time ago, he says, I can't do anything, it's not a new permit, I can't just go out to your house and knock on your door and say, hey, somebody said your deck's not attached to the building, or your roof is loose, or, you know, or whatever it might be. He says, I just can't go out, and I don't know whether that's true or not, seems like it.
well, that's a building code matter.
Yeah.
And lighting is a little different because everybody can see it, whether it's
Yes, yeah,
fully shielded.
but I like the idea of being, say, hey, did you see the lighting on the new building? Let's talk to the building inspector, say that seems a little excessive, and he would then, would he then say, not my purview, not my concern, or it seems like now he would be able to do that.
He has the
as a
authority to
blanket-
enforce it,
As a blanket thing.
right.
Yeah.
So the question would come down to whether or not we note that on the approval sheet.
Yeah. You could just make a note, and then you've captured the note, or you could advise him verbally, whichever you.
Yeah, it's the
choose.
same thing, because Jennifer will put that into the minutes.
So I just think Jennifer had something to add, so.
No, I have a question. As someone who often types your motions, since you've been looking at this issue, a number of times your motions are, we approve the application for new windows on the condition that the lighting on the site be brought up to date.
We've done that twice.
Is that a step beyond where you can go?
I think so.
Well, on a new sign, though, I thought that was in our purview. No?
Only if it's part of the only if
Yeah.
it's part of the application.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
there's-
well, if it's part of the application, but if they're coming, I'm trying to clarify, so if they're coming in for a sign and the lighting is part of the sign,
Yes.
wouldn't that
Then
be,
you
then
can-
that be, that's part of our
Just the sign,
purview?
but I noticed you guys went beyond that and said, oh, by the way,
That's
the
what
rest
we're
of the stuff
clarifying.
needs to be changed or upgraded, and I thought.
Correct, and that was based on the directive from Davis Walters.
Yeah, that
Gotcha.
seemed a little out of place. I mean, it's nice to be able to, whether you can do that or not, but it was like, well, why are you
Well, 'cause I
looking
think of it-
elsewhere when you should be focusing on the.
Because we didn't have clarification.
Yeah, like you should only be looking at the application, not the rest of the.
Yeah, and again, that's where A should be changed, the language should be changed. In another example, however, the yacht club, where they're going to re-side the building, and presumably the big old wall pack light, which is not compliant, it does nothing to enhance the property, is on the siding.
Yeah,
So isn't that in our purview then,
I
right?
would think so.
Yeah, when that goes up, that has to be brought into compliance, yes. And
So there's judgment calls to be made.
Right.
No, I think that makes sense, because
It's
it's
not
under
in
your
your
purview,
purview.
but I've been to conservation with an addition, and they talking about lighting on a building. And I said, well, how is it that conservation is talking about flood, I had a client wanted floodlights, and when it snowed, she could turn it on and watch the snow come down. And I thought, how is that the purview of the Conservation Commission to look at lighting? I thought
It's in their jurisdiction.
I thought they'd overstepped their bounds in that regard, so I could see on architectural where you're looking at, hey, let's get this now, it's gonna be recited, there are light fixtures on the building, but that seems like it's part of that issue that we're talking about. But if you had an outbuilding that had lighting that wasn't part of the application, you said that giant spotlight that you have on the outbuilding, it may not fit the lighting thing, but that shouldn't, seems like it shouldn't be included in our comments at that meeting. Doesn't mean we couldn't say to the building inspector, hey, could you go also take a look at the rest of the lighting on this property? 'Cause it seems like that is now.
You can notify him of something. And so I'll commit to you that I will bring this to our new town council and get some clarity on, it's probably not a bright line test, but there's probably some real good guidelines as to what is within your jurisdiction and what is not. And I just want to, help that out, okay?
Great, that's what we need to do. I think
George,
we
the
agree
other
on
thing
that.
is, we talk about wattage or bulb intensity. I see lamp, I guess looking
There's
at
been some
lamp.
advances in lighting in the last
Yeah.
25 years.
But there are also some very intense, high-intensity lights and some very
That are below
off-putting
the
quality of
lumen
light.
level there. There's a lumen level in the bylaw.
Yeah, and also frequency of the light. Some of these LED lights are just horrific to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And
So-
I always look at it and say, boy, that is some horrific quality of light.
I completely disagree with you, absolutely 100%. I think that when this was brought, there was no lighting bylaw at all in town. And the planning board brought something that was simple to easy to understand, did not require an expert to make the applicant's case. And you can have as much lighting as a property owner, and the commercial property owner deems necessary. There are liability issues, security issues that come up. So the bylaw currently says you can have as much lighting as you need. It all has to be fully shielded, directed downward, and no direct spillover onto adjacent property. That's it.
Doesn't talk about intensity.
No, but maybe the time has come that we should talk about intensity and the kind of light that is allowed. That's a bigger discussion than we're gonna have
That's a point
tonight.
of reresearch, and I know Carol's looked into it, and I've looked into it, a 15-watt LED floodlight,
Yeah.
which are common violations all around the town. That's puts out pretty much as much as a 100-watt bulb, a little bit more. They range between, I think, depending on the manufacturer, 1,200 lumens to 2,000. And so,
Can be extreme.
Wow.
obviously, the advantage is you're just running a 15-watt lamp.
Yeah.
So your electric bill, you'll quickly turn up, an old incandescent 100-watt bulb is again, something like in the 1,000 to 1,500 lumens range. And then, of course, the other aspect is what the spectrum is,
Quality,
they talk about Kelvin,
Yeah.
well, who knows what's that,
Color.
And so all of those, most of them, have a big spike down the blue end.
Yeah, color.
Yeah, and
Quality.
the blue spike is what we would like to eliminate.
Don't show
So
warmer
if you see
tones.
something like, I went so far as to take some pictures of some of the ground lighting LEDs. The manufacturer's plate on the back, and then go back and reference that. So there is a way, without using a light meter, so that you could
Right,
reference
right.
it.
They're getting better with the warming, because that was always a frailty,
Yeah,
a
no,
shortcoming,
that's
is they
gotten
couldn't get a
publicity.
warm LED.
Yeah.
Right.
And now they're getting
You're
there,
right.
but they're not anywhere near an incandescent orangey quality of light.
Well, that's actually what kind of caught my eye on here, because they said they're replacing them with LED lights, and I just thought, oh.
Well, I think
that
they
just
already
makes- They already
have
have them,
one.
okay, but
I
I always
didn't
just
say
think of
that.
the
Yeah.
blue, harsh, bright,
Yeah.
lights,
Well,
as
they-
opposed to a.
that's.
And even on my home, I looked, when I moved in, I said 40 or 60 watt bulbs seemed, the double fixture, with one on each door, seemed to be a nice enough light to light up the landings. But then I would look at my neighbor, and he's got a 150 watt bulb, and I thought, wow, that's a little excessive, but like you said, it's a fine line.
The town has not gone into the single-family house level
Yeah.
of regulating lighting. So as I said, there's a bigger discussion. You're not the first person to bring it up, and I appreciate the sensitivity of the community. And I think we have an older community that also has more sensitivity to bright and harsh light and glare. And that's probably why this bylaw was passed the first time around.
But they also need certain qualities of light to certain
Yeah,
level of light
right.
to see.
Yes.
It's like, what's the point of that light, other than showing a light? I can't see the damn walkway, or I can't,
Right.
I can't see the curve, right, trip.
Exactly. So we're trying to find that
Happy
that
medium.
medium, yeah, that works.
Yeah,
So,
especially with-
Any other comments on lighting before George moves on?
No, I
Okay.
think it's clear.
Thank you. So let's talk about process and procedures. The town is looking to be a business-friendly town. I happen to think we are business-friendly already, and I happen to think that volunteer boards do a fabulous job at respecting and honoring applicants throughout the town. I think it's one of the best towns that you can do business in. Rich, you probably have more experience. Anyway, bylaws should be clear and understandable, and an applicant should be able to read a bylaw and have an expectation of what is required of him to enhance, consistent with the ARC purposes, to enhance the economic resources of the town along with cultural and historic. I think this is a good time to look at the processes of the ARC, because I have heard people say that I think you might agree, some of the work you do is perfunctory, the like for like, the swimming pool changeover that needs a permit, and therefore needs ARC approval. I'm wondering if there is an an administrative review process that staff could do with the chairman, subject to a future consent by the board, so sort of a consent calendar. We had like for like changeover of two things, and someone came in to change their cedar shingles to new cedar shingles, didn't have to go to ARC. But the ARC, as part of your agenda, approves those as a consent calendar. If you object, the applicant has to come in. I think that's a really nice way to do easy business, stop you from being bored with some of the things that you may, that are the same time after time. If it's obvious that there is no controversy or issue with it that requires a review committee, maybe we can help you avoid that extra step for some of the applications. I thought CVS is a really good case in point, because that was a nice like for like. And I thought you made a really good catch on the receiving entrance, that is, under our bylaw, is a sign. And the applicant was glad to get approval by agreeing to that. That was totally great. So I think if you would allow me, I'd like to sort of flesh out how we might set up an administrative review for minor projects with consent of the committee. Minor stuff, I'd like to make sure that that the forms work, and that staff can work directly with the chair, whoever the chair may be. And I think what I'd like to do is have our new town council, look at the bylaw and advise on how we can do that without making a change to the bylaw. I don't necessarily want to bring the Architecture Review Committee bylaw to the town meeting anytime soon. I think the bylaw is set up so that we can do the administrative side, and then everything else kind of follows on there. The other thing that I want to bring to you, and it's sort of a third thing that's only peripherally on the agenda, is providing specific guidance on evaluating future projects under your review criteria. It may be time to revisit the review criteria in that bylaw, which might take a little more time than not, but the housing overlay district that was passed in November provides guidance as to the form of buildings. And I know you have a couple of criteria in the bylaw, that your design criteria include reviewing form and shape and massing and things like that. In my mind, the Architecture Review Committee's review of these projects for design and architectural elements, absolutely critical for the town, within the bounds of what the town has already set up for the form requirements that they want to see happen. And that's for housing, the housing overlay district, for housing projects in the downtown in the future. So I don't know that we're not pressed for that. We do not have an applicant ready to come in and be reviewed, but maybe we'd like to be a little bit ahead of the curve on that, because we do anticipate
I agree.
the housing overlay district will get some new development. It's designed to get some new development, frankly. It takes a long time to get those things done. I'd like to look at, just talk to town council about lighting, an administrative review process and some guidance on applying your design criteria with regard to the overlay district. And we bring that back to you, maybe I'll even have town council come in and sit and kind of go over it, because I think we can all benefit from a town council person who has experience in other communities and knows how the law is applied and has done it for a long time.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
We've been lucky, I guess we haven't really had a lot of legal pushback by applicants.
Right.
They would say, I'm gonna see you guys, or you can't tell me I can't do this.
Do you feel like it's a good direction to go to have, to avoid the time and expense of an applicant for the really small stuff? Does that sound like it makes sense at face value?
I think I can make a list of projects or things that could qualify. For example, 165 would be an example. And Derek's vision originally was for that building to be pink.
Pink and blue, yep.
So he might have, we might have been asked, okay, this looks like it's just a re-siding project, but they're gonna paint it pink. So in that case, I think we would have to,
Not like for like, certainly.
would not be like for like.
That's what it was referred to when it got built, the pink, everybody knew, pink Derek Romley.
Derek Romley, yeah.
Pink and blue buildings, so everybody knew immediately what we were talking
I
about.
mean, this is more or less an offer. If you would like to avail yourselves and identify some things that you think make sense for administrative
Yeah,
review,
well, I've-
we can
I've
add
thought
and
of-
subtract to
I've
that
thought of
over
some
time.
That certainly, but more back to the mechanical process, the consent calendar, like I would, I as chairman, for example, would get a call from the building department saying, we have an applicant who wants to replace the existing Anderson windows that are fogged with new Anderson windows. And what happens after that?
So I think we would probably wait until the deadline so an agenda is put together. And we would then staff, myself or Davis or Michelle or somebody would meet with the chairman and say, this is what we have, let's look at the applications, this is what we think is a consent calendar eligible.
Okay.
And if at any time it gets to the consent calendar, and as I said, if you disagree, then the applicant will have to come back.
Would the chairman communicate with the other ARC members
I
and
think
say,
you
we
need
have
to
these
vest
things before us?
you invest some trust in your chairman to make those judgment calls.
Yeah.
And I'll bet after you see a couple of consent calendar agendas, you might decide whether, you can adjust your level of how you do it.
In the case of like the health agent or the conservation agent, they're empowered by their board to make these decisions.
Right.
Yes.
Here, who's going to empower the chairman? I mean, it will just be.
And that's why we'll go back to a final approval by the board.
Well, the other important thing is when you have to go to these formal hearings for a change of window, let's say I want to change that door, the same door, I want to replace it. You have an applicant that just says, hell with it, I'm not, I don't want to go before all that, I'm just swapping out the door I had for a new door. So they won't either, they'll do it on the side, and they won't even come in, and it makes sense, because, but then again,
Yeah, it's happened
it's
all
a
the time.
judgment call, like, hey, changing that square window into a trapezoid window or an octagonal window, that may be something or a circle top window,
Right.
something substantially different. But if a client could come in, get an immediate decision on something, hey, I'm gonna replace this window with an identical window, and you could give approval right then and there, you'd get a lot more people coming in and notifying you, hey, I'm gonna be doing this work, as opposed to saying, I'm not telling anybody, I'm just gonna do this work because it's gonna take me 2 months to get approval, or a month to get approval for something stupid. And I've gone through this in Chatham, where I had to make a formal presentation for something it cost the client $5,000. They voted on it within less than 10 minutes. They looked at it, said, looks good to me, okay. That cost the client a month of time and a lot of money for historical review on a building that was, over a certain period of years, and it could have easily been taken care of by a secretary or staff, looking at the building and say, this building has no historical value, it's a cabin, it's in the woods, it's not anywhere, presentable.
Right.
But yet, we still have to go through that procedure, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
I think we want to be clear, clean, business-friendly, and certainly not, obfuscating any of the bylaws, but making sure that it's as efficient as we can be.
And you could say, like, the town and the chairman could say, yeah, I think this should come before the committee.
Right,
And
absolutely.
that's just what do you call it, preliminary review.
Right.
Yeah, I think it should come before the committee, instead of everything coming. I mean, the Architecture Review Committee, in my many, many years of doing this, we haven't done very many buildings. I mean, it's been signs and things like that. It almost seems a ridiculous waste of time for the applicant and for even us to come in. And if we don't have a quorum, we've all come in, the applicants have come in, and they all have to go back home for something that's a simple decision, but we can't make it because there's not a quorum.
Right.
So that's a very good, and any committee.
We can always try this, and if we can find a way to make it work, and you like it, we can keep up with it. So what I'd like to do is do some research and report back to you.
Very good. What about you, Carol and Kelly? Do you have any comments about this at this time? Feel like that's a good way forward? We've talked about this over the time. Fortunately, in the 6 years that I've been on it, we've always been able to have a quorum. Even though one night I had to get up in my pajamas and answer the phone. That was in COVID, right?
We had to track Paige down one night.
Yeah,
In
we
fact,
have to
I'm
track some
concerned
people
about why
down.
she
Oh, I
isn't here.
forgot, there was a meeting, yeah, I forgot, can we get down here?
But also, again, I read the papers, and the other side of it is that, for example, in Somerville, there's plenty of lawsuits by people that don't like the project and feel that it was approved without proper review.
Yeah, I guess that is an aspect, yeah.
But we're not Somerville, hopefully.
Not yet, not for a long
Well,
time.
George, how would that, yeah, I mean, that isn't, because these are published, right? And somebody can say, oh, there's a hearing on such and such,
Mhm.
I want to go to it, but then all of a sudden, there is no hearing. I guess you take.
Well, those
that-
matters would not get to the agenda, right?
We're talking about
Right.
like for like, so it wouldn't.
Yeah, those would be decided outside of the agenda, or how would that work?
They would
Just
be
a-
predetermined outside the agenda and then listed at the top of your agenda, administrative consent items.
Okay,
And then the board, is there a motion to accept the administrative items? So moved, done. On to our business.
okay. So they would still be advertised, posted, and so on?
I've looked at the bylaw, and I don't think there's any way out of your committee making the final determination on matters that are applicable. That's it. But if we can reduce the time and expense of the applicant and the need for presentations, I think this will be, I think it's
Well, it
worth
would speed
working
up,
on.
it would certainly speed up a cluttered agenda. There have been times when there were a whole ton of things, and each one had to be gone through.
Right, right.
So George, you're saying that an applicant could come in and just get administrator review, or would they still, or it would be listed as something that would still go through this process? But, I mean, they'd still have to show up and they'd still have to come in, we'd still have to vote, so it's almost the same thing, whether you vote formally or say no, that, like CVS tonight, like you could easily look at that and go, not a big deal. I mean, that's what we all do, we look at it and go, not a big deal.
Right.
No problem here. I guess what I'm saying is this a process you could just walk in off the street and say, hey, George Strait, I want to replace this sign with a similar sign, or replace that window. or
I
that door.
don't think,
Can
I
get
don't think the
approval?
bylaw allows for an instant review of things that are applicable to ARC. And this is all pending town council's review of how this can work. But I think there has to be a nod from the ARC before projects that are applicable
So that
go
would be a whole
forward.
nother matter, we'd have to discuss that procedure, whether or not it's under our purview or
Yeah.
not, something more.
And, you know, and
legal.
maybe at some point we change the applicability section of what is required and what is not. But I'm not sure it's really broken now. I just think there's a more business-friendly way we could kind of structure the way we do things at a staff level for you.
Can I just jump in, George, because I thought I heard you say that if somebody came in to replace a door and it was going to be an administrative review, you would, for confirmation, pass it through on the agenda for consent?
That's correct.
Consent item.
Yes.
But the applicant wouldn't have to be here for that.
Right.
It would just be.
You'd just be hoping that we consented.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then-
But what if you didn't, though? I mean, then that's another week or 2 weeks.
Well, there's a possibility,
You
but
have to wait for approval on something.
if you as a committee, if we start with this and you as a committee determine the kind of things that you think should be on a consent calendar, 95% of them should be okayed when.
I thought maybe you guys were gonna say, hey, I'm gonna go, I come in off the street on a Monday and I wanna get a quick review. You pass it to the chairman, say, hey, I got a guy who wants to do the sign. Can we just give him, what I'm hearing is, no, you can't just give him approval, like, no, you don't need to come before the committee, like conservation, I forget what they call it, something AR or something, where you come in and you show them what you wanna do, I wanna put a stone path in, do I need to
Yeah.
come in for a hearing? And they look at it and go, no, you're okay, you sign off on it and off you go.
And they authorized that with, prior to the CONSCOM seeing those and seeing them on their calendar and agreeing to what was done.
We would have an agent, just as the health and conservation do, that would come in and see these things on his desk.
But are you saying that that can't be done because it's not legal?
I'm saying I want to talk to town council and make sure.
Okay. It has to
See what the
be
breadth is.
published and,
If that's the goal of this committee, to be that kind of business friendly, we can
yeah.
look to see if it's allowed in the bylaw or not.
I think you get a lot more people that just come in and say, hey, let me run this by, let me get approval.
Right,
You
right.
know, let me get preliminary approval, so I'm not in violation, instead of just putting up like a ladder board. I'm gonna take that old sign off, put mine up. It's not a big deal, but do I really gotta go in and get a review for all this, for the same thing?
Right.
You know, it seems like they'd say, oh, I'm not gonna
Well,
bother.
that would be an item that would go on the list of
Right.
ones that are obvious consent, you know, same size panel on the ladder board, you know, same lettering, no offensive coloring, doesn't you know, stuff like
I
that.
think like for like can be very subjective, so I think it's kind
Yeah,
of hard to
that's
say,
right.
right? Like people, somebody might think something's like for like, and you're like, well, not really. Like, I mean, it's.
Yeah, but you're saying
subjective.
like they'd still have to come to a hearing, they still have to advertise, still have to come to a hearing, and at which point we would say, we'd make a decision at that point. You might as well make a full board review and decision
Like-
if they have to
Well,
come to
yeah.
a
So
hearing.
let me wrestle this through with the town council and see what the breadth is on administrative review, if it can work just like the Conservation Commission does, or not, and
Yeah.
I'll report back to you,
Yeah.
okay?
That would save a lot of time for a lot of people, just.
Well, I would say
If that's possible.
that my experience is that
Could be.
the application process for the Architects Review Committee actually moves pretty smoothly and pretty speedily. Every once in a while, you get a clinker where somebody has not read the requirements, has a inadequate submittal,
Right.
something like that. And then, of course, the bigger projects that have a preliminary review process, that's the whole intent, right?
Yeah.
So before you get too far, you know that your project is.
Well, you know, it's
will
funny, in the
receive
past, I've had people come in with nothing, and they go, what are you doing? It says, oh, I'm gonna, it's gonna be like this big, and I'm gonna have my name here, and that's what it's gonna look like. And you're like, well, how big is that? I don't know, and what are the letters, and what color are they? I don't know. Oh, they're gonna be, so, we've had people that were totally
course,
unprepared
yeah.
for a hearing.
Yeah.
And at the same time, this guy put together a package that was very nicely
Yeah,
done.
he's a professional sign company.
Right.
But was it really, you know, I mean, I look at that and go, that's very nicely done, but that obviously took them some time to do.
But that's why it was seamless, right? Because it
Yeah.
was all there.
Yeah,
And when you come prepared, I'm sorry, when you come prepared, that's why often things will go through smoothly and our process is
Oh,
okay.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because they come in with
Yeah.
what we've asked.
So that goes to some sort of public education thing where, you know,
what's expected.
getting people aware of what's gonna be required and all that. and-
Right.
Or having somebody do it for
Or
them.
demonstrated enough that you can, like, lay people can look at that and go, oh, I understand what I'm looking at. I understand what that light fixture is, or I understand where that light's coming from, or we've had times where people gloss over that, go, oh, I didn't see the light fixture, I didn't realize that was an LED light fixture, an uplight or side light, or, and I guess that's our shortcoming if we don't kind of up to speed with that, but it does happen.
Well, that's inevitable part of the business, part of the job, you know.
I do have one question though. If, would the bylaws need to be amended? Because if it's going to be subject to preliminary review in an administrative way, just say, I don't know, your next door neighbor wants to put up a big ugly sign and, or just a sign, any sign, and you find it offensive, and you haven't gone through the steps that are outlined by the bylaw, does that create a necessity to amend the bylaws so that we include that simple things? Because it does say signs, new or modified, will go through, you know, this whole site plan and all that, architectural elevations. I mean, would it be cleaner if these were amended to include that for simple
procedure.
applications would be reviewed in an administrative way?
I just wrote down as you started the
Yeah,
question,
yeah, I think so.
building commissioner ability to approve minor projects such as repairs or like-for-like changes without a permit. And that's a question, so I think we're on the same lines. Yeah, if someone comes in with a new sign, I don't see the building commissioner or anybody waving that through. You know, I think there's a value in architectural review for anything that has a substantial change to the town at all, so.
Okay.
So let's, if you don't mind, I want to explore this and make sure we're
No,
on
I
good
think
legal
it's-
ground.
I think it's a great idea. I just wondered whether someone would come back and say, well, it wasn't in the newspaper and it wasn't,
Or you made me do it, and you didn't make that guy do
Right.
it.
But I think CVS was a
There'll be
great
a few of
example
those.
of what it could be. I think CVS was a great example just because it was just so like for like, that they really didn't need
right.
to
Yeah,
be
what's
in
what's
here.
different here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
But at the same time, that little part about the logo being on the delivery sign.
yes.
It's like, you know, we missed that, or went overhead, or somebody
We-
thought that was okay, or someone didn't think, like, 5 of us thought it was okay, and 4 of us didn't think it was. So it is a touchy thing, because it could be, somebody might like it, and somebody might not like it.
And I think there have been quite a few times when people have come before us and wanted to change a sign and the signs, you know, we look at it and think of where it's gonna be, and we make suggestions that, you know, your lettering is too small, it's overwhelmed by your logo or whatever it is. And, I mean, well, do you really, do you have time to do, I mean, you're so busy.
Absolutely not.
Well,
But thank you for volunteering.
George, the sign code, right, there's a sign code
Yes.
that is, if it's still structured the same way, I think there's a sign code that's not
Oh,
under
yeah,
our
that's the sign
purview.
bylaw that covers a lot of,
Sizing.
there's an overlap,
Yeah,
and that, we discussed that could be another area for clarification.
Comment, yeah. Right.
Because it's just like the lighting thing, we're not the enforcers for the sign bylaw.
Right.
But,
I've
Yeah,
had
come-
members on the committee that said, that were like put on the committee from the Chamber of Commerce to kind of like keep an eye on us, and they would say, hey, you know, that sign you wanted this big, you can actually have one bigger. And it's like, what are you doing? He doesn't want one bigger. Well, you could have one 6 times bigger.
Oh.
And it was very awkward because ideally you're trying to keep things, toned down, looking good, but at the same time, you don't want to, if a guy wants a 2 foot by 3 foot sign, you don't want to say, hey, according to the bylaw, you can have the sign code, you can have something 3 times bigger. But then again, they are still ruled by the sign code in the setbacks and the amount of square footage, things like that. And I think that was an
And
issue.
that's been, again, a query to the building commissioner, and there have been occasions where appearances were that it did not comply.
Mhm.
And my understanding was we were not supposed to say, we disapprove because it doesn't comply with the sign bylaw. We were supposed to say we disapprove because it constitutes visual clutter and there's obscene language or something of that nature, So
Within the
that,
bounds of your bylaw.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, there were times where, like, to give you an example, across from the health food store, there's 3 little shops, and they're set back quite a way. So the signs on that building were quite small, and I always thought that was peculiar because you could barely kind of see. It was almost the contrary, whereas an architect, you say, that really, those signs on that building don't look proportionate to what they should have, but according to the bylaw, they're not allowed to be any bigger than this or that. And that was the contrary, where it wasn't like someone came in, I want a giant sign, he would say, no, it's too close to the street and it's too big. And at the other side would be like, you're way far back there, that sign ought to be able to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more visible. I can't believe I'm saying this, but there are times where you look at something that looks ridiculous
Yeah.
because it's too tiny.
Out of
Or it
proportion.
doesn't look proportionate to something else, so. And then at the end, I always said, you know what, it's all so arbitrary. It's freedom of speech and arbitrary, and that business may or may not be there in a year, so why am I getting my panties in a bunch? And, so it can be really kind of a tough issue to bother a lot of people on a lot of things, for things that don't stand the test of time. They might be there a year and then they're gone. But I guess you have to have some kind of guideline, but at the same time, we didn't have much say in the matter. It's like, well, that's what they're allowed by, size-wise.
Right.
It would be nice if you had something a little bigger, or a little trim around it, or, but then you get into finer points of a design, we're not allowed to dictate a particular architectural style, but we're also able to look at things adjacent and, is it similar?
over the years, a lot of helpful suggestions, I think, have been made by committee members,
Yes.
and people have said, wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, didn't balk,
Yeah.
and other people might
Yeah,
say,
I mean,
okay.
maybe we're trying to be overly helpful, I don't know.
Well, you'd have somebody say, hey, wouldn't that sign be nice, that board, if it had a little trim around it, just even a piece of flat stock around it, and you'd think, am I going too far? Is that something, like, as a designer, you would say, that would be easy to do, not that expensive, it would look really nice. Then you think, hey, am I going too far? Am I dictating what this person, like, maybe they don't want trim on there, where do I draw the line?
Right.
Say, hey.
They can make suggestions. and-
We always did, and hope that they didn't say, no, I don't want to do that. It's going to cost me another $100, do something.
Right.
But I was thought, just make the offer, see if it bites, and if you get any pushback from it.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's appeal.
That's what I was here for. I thank you for the time and indulging me in
Thanks for coming in. I
this sort
think that
of
was very helpful.
conceptual
Yeah.
conversation.
Were we going to discuss the possibility of, we had talked as a committee about eliminating most of the lit signs in the town, going forward. Were we gonna discuss that tonight?
A rear rejected lighting?
You know, the Chase Banks, the internal lighting in Chase Bank.
So-
I mean, to tighten up our
So,
bylaws a bit.
Yeah, the bylaw does not allow internally illuminated signs. Those have been prohibited for 30 years.
Right,
So
But
the
some are
industry
back-
has gone to a backlit
Yeah.
sign where they put
Right.
the lights in, they shine back, so it makes a background.
right.
And that has been deemed to be acceptable on a couple of projects in town. If that's something that you would like taken up, I can bring it to the planning board to see if they have any interest in doing so.
I just feel like this is an important component of the new town overlay plan,
Mhm.
that if we don't get a handle on, you know, are we gonna get the Dollar Tree with their big green letters, or are we gonna,
Mhm.
we gonna get, I don't, you know, just any of those things. And I feel as though it's extremely important now to get a handle on this, because if we don't, we could end up looking like
Oh, yeah.
Las Vegas, kind of. But, I mean, but I think it's really important that we don't have any more TD Bank, those kinds of signs, the Chase
Mhm.
signs. And I think before any construction moves forward, this should be, I mean, at least, this is our own personal feeling, but we've all discussed this, and and so have many people in the town who know you're on architectural review have remarked on these signs. So that is something that I think is really important.
Can we have working meetings that are not public meetings where we
As long as
discuss?
it's no more than two.
You cannot have a working meeting of your group. Well, you can have a working meeting anytime you want. You have to publish it as a public meeting, according to the.
So if we
open meeting law.
wanted to discuss a whole bunch of shortcomings or things in the bylaw, or things that it hasn't been updated and God knows how many
Just put
years.
on your agenda, discussion of zoning
Okay.
sign regulations.
Okay, so it's not a covert meeting.
Talk as long as you want about it.
Okay.
Is this something that you feel you would like to discuss with the planning board before we
Well,
have discussions about it?
The planning board is the keeper of the bylaw, and they bring forward bylaw amendments. You're welcome to get 10 people to petition one, but that's not always most advisable. The board is preparing, they're going to be introduced next week, to some ideas to modernize the code and to modernize the use table, things that don't directly pertain to the ARC. Let me bring that issue up with them and see if it's something that they want to take up. And I'll try to convey the interest that was expressed here, because you're the board who is administering these things in a lot of places.
We've discussed, I mean, anytime we've had to approve a sign like the Chase sign, you know, we do it thinking, this
Yeah,
is,
where do we stand?
this isn't, it doesn't
Right.
seem to fit the character of the town, but
Yeah.
it's allowable.
Right. It's
Well,
kind of a
bear with me,
workaround.
That was, and we're going to encounter that all the time, but again, I think what George is on the right track, and also the idea that I would be perfectly fine with having, a published discussion,
Sure,
Yeah.
because it's only going to get more intense.
absolutely. But I think it's really important that this is
Well, there are
seriously
other-
considered.
Yeah, there are other items along that line, like we talked about a long time ago, about awnings, like Papagino's using a awning that surrounds your whole building, which has a logo on it, and you think, hey, that's a sign.
Right,
But there is no language in here about anything like that, or painting your
Yeah,
building.
only the formula-based business regulations that identify that as one of the criteria for
And I
formula-based
guess the
business.
other issue, I don't know if it would be something, is the scope. Our scope is limited to certain district, and there are other areas in town where people have said to me, don't you guys, isn't that your purview? And I said, no, I think limited business is out our.
Your purview is based on the use, not the district in which it's located. So
But the industrial zone is off.
Right.
Historic.
So we've had
That's been
discussions
granted,
about
yes.
Main Street, like where, like someone at one, and I've been through this with clients and different things, where somebody says, hey, we should get our house deemed on the National Historic Registry. And I said, wait a minute, before you do that, you have to understand something. When you do that, that means that everything you do to your house has to be approved by the state. But at the same time, someone talked about Main Street and said, hey, this is an area of critical concern architecturally. And there are areas where the architecture is of such value, but we have no purview over it.
Right.
And it was always a question is, hey, is there some way that we can somehow, if somebody wants to make a change to a building, that we can at least have some opportunity to express a concern or a recommendation? And that's, again, a whole bylaw thing. But I think there've been a lot of times where people have come to me and said, hey, don't you have something, like, how did that get passed?
Yeah, yeah.
Wasn't
No,
our,
Your jurisdiction does not extend to
Jurisdiction.
single-family homes, right?
yeah, and that was always an issue with especially historic buildings or buildings of significant architectural value,
mhm.
that we had no purview over it. And, you know, at some point you want to draw the line and say, I don't want to review every single house, but at the same time, there are some structures that are noteworthy.
Yeah, and protection of historic buildings in the town is something that we probably need to do a better job of than we have done in the past. And it's apparent that the community does not want at this time to adopt a historic district.
Mm.
So maybe we need to identify the most important structures and get them on a state or national register so they have the protection that they need.
Well, even just like if any work is being done on a particular building that is, because like I said, when you do that to somebody
Mhm.
where they can't paint their building white because it's not historical, and you think, what's the matter with white? Or I can't paint it ivory. You lock somebody into something that you wish you never got into with the state by deeming it historic,
Right.
like on the
Right.
registry, because that's a whole nother serious thing.
Mhm.
And I think there are two things in Orleans that are on there. One is the lifeboat, I think, is on the
So
national.
There's 4 items,
Is it?
4, yeah.
that are on the
Yeah.
historic registry.
Right.
And, you know, but at the same time, like I said, it is a dangerous situation where if somebody wants to put a mailbox up, you have to go through this procedure and you think, what did I do to myself
Right.
by getting it on the registry? But at the same time, it's nice to say, hey, you know, that dormer is not appropriate to that building, but we don't have purview over it.
Not under the present bylaws,
Yeah.
right?
And sometimes it's nice to say, hey, you know, just want to let you know that a traditional gable would have been what's on that building, not this
Mhm.
type of roof. And then you go away friends,
Right.
saying, no, you can't do that. And we're not allowed to, you know, dictate a particular style of architecture,
Mhm, mhm.
which is a fine line as well,
Mhm.
you know, what
Right.
is and what isn't. So, just some things that I've seen over many years.
Thank you, Rich.
So if everybody's satisfied with the discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned at, looks like,